Hello, everybody. My name is William Paulhamus, and today I'm with Paul Johansson and Jeff Kessler. Jeff is a candidate running to represent West Virginia in the United States Senate. We will be asking him a series of important questions about his campaign and his plans for addressing issues that West Virginians face. This interview is not an advertisement or an endorsement. It's simply an opportunity for voters to hear directly from the candidate. Paul?
Yeah, this is we are not a journalist. We're citizen interviewers, and we'll cover the basics of it. This is an opportunity for Jeff, to give as long an answer as he wants and to cover as much as he can to give people a chance to know who he is as a person, not just a candidate. So feel free to be yourself
Sure.
and just yeah, let us know what brought you here and where you're going with everything. All right, let's get started.
Thank you,
Sure.
Paul. And we'll start with an introduction, Jeff. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and share your core policies and goals?
Sure. I was born and raised in the Northern Panhandle. Was a grandson of Russian immigrants who came over through Ellis Island, settled in a little town called McMecken here in the Northern Panhandle, and went to work in a Hitchman coal mine and got paid through script through the company store. My mother was the youngest of 8 kids. Uh, Grandpa got hurt, and of course, he was expendable at that point. They replaced him, got evicted from the company store, and they struggled to make ends meet after that. So, my father's his mother came over, or they're Russian from the Wheeling area, or not, excuse me, German from the Wheeling area, and you know, uh, my dad's dad was served in World War I and apparently got gassed over there and came back here. Was a chief of police of a small town up the road called Benwood, and passed away unfortunately at the age of 35, leaving my grandmother as a 35-year-old or a young widow with a five-year-old son. So he raised my dad on her own and had to go to work back in the 30s. Folks didn't do that. Ladies didn't do that. And, my dad used to tell me his mother, he was subject to ridicule because his mother actually worked and had to go out. Most of them were in aprons and homemakers in the traditional model. So, uh, you know, I, I've always, but actually she went to work in a local post office, just some clerical duties, and ended up becoming later after becoming the first female postmaster in the state of West Virginia. Was appointed by, I believe, John Kennedy, President Kennedy. So, I've always had a sensitivity to single parents, single mothers, because it was instilled in me to do that. Folks that struggled, because my mom grew up on the wrong side of my tracks. My dad was grown up in a difficult era and time where certainly women's rights were not respected, and so I've always had that instilled in me to look out for the underdog. Frankly, went away, graduated from West Liberty State College, worked my way through school. My work study job there was a garbage man. Frankly, I had to clear out the garbage out of a couple of residence halls, which I did that. Went on to law school, graduated from there, and came back to the Northern Panhandle in Moundsville and began working as an associate at a firm, and then went across the street, and another individual lawyer asked me to come in partnership with him, and I've been doing that since 1983. So I'm one of the original partners of the law firm. I've done a little bit of everything in my life, and my law practice is a very general practice. I've been a city attorney, a municipal judge, an assistant prosecutor. I'm probably the only candidate that's on the ballot that's ever put a man in prison for rape of a child or murder of a man. But also, it also instilled in me that the door of justice is supposed to swing both ways. Uh, I later became a state senator in 1997 when my predecessor passed away. I was appointed to the position and then ran successfully 5 times to be to the West Virginia State Senate, and representing 9 counties in the state: Marshall, Wetzel, Tyler, Doddridge, Ritchie, Calhoun, parts of Marion, Monongalia, and Ohio counties, and throwing Gilmer too towards the end. So I've represented about 10 of the 55 counties in my time. I ultimately became president of the Senate after Senator Byrd died, and there was a change in all the leadership with Manchin moving from governor to U.S. Senator and Earl Ray Tomlin to Senate president to governor, and I became elected by my peers in the Senate as the president of the Senate / lieutenant governor of the state, which I did for 4 years, or I guess 3 years, from 11 to 14. After the 14 election, the Republicans took control of the legislature, and I became the minority leader. I ran for governor in 16, didn't win successfully against Jim Justice, got beaten that primary. He ended up winning the nominee as a Democrat, and within months or a year later switched parties on us. So, I've always been a Democrat. I'm a born and raised one. I'm a Kennedy Democrat that sort of abides by the don't ask what your country can do for you, do what you can do for your country. And I'm, I think public service is a noble profession when done right. What I seen, after I lost that election, I came home, got 5 boys. You may see or 4 boys, excuse me, had they're running around here, probably still in bed, thankfully, on a Saturday morning. 11-year-old's up. So if you see him banging behind me, you'll know why. So, I got in the race again when what probably drove me into it as much as anything is just watching the chaos going on in Washington, D.C. and the assault on all the rights, First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. I mean, freedom of the press, stifling of ideas. I mean, it's just, and I, a little bit of old Thomas Paine is, now is the time that try men's souls, and it does. And I was perfectly happy being here, being John Q. citizen, taking care of my kids, being a father, taking care of my clients, solving their problems. As a lawyer, I've do everything from adoptions to probate, from wills to, and probate of estates. I take care of my people in my community from cradle to grave. That's, and everything in between, from bankruptcy to car wrecks to divorce, you name it, I've done it. But in any event, what really probably put me over the edge was Senator Capito's vote for the big, beautiful bill. I call it the big, ugly bill, as much as anything, because, when I was in the Senate was president of the Senate in 2012, it was after the 2012 election. President Obama was successful in getting the Affordable Care Act passed, if you remember. And the states at that point had an opportunity to join in, and many states did not. If you remember, a lot of the deep red southern states were not joining that Obamacare. And I remember, Governor Tomlin came to me and said, Jeff, his bills that he introduced as the governor weren't moving very fast, wanted to have a meeting with me as the president of the Senate, because I controlled the agenda of the Senate at the time, and said, I'll be happy to meet with you, Governor. And we met, and we went over his bills. He said, what do you want from me? I said, I want you to commit to West Virginia will agree to join the Medicaid expansion. He says, that wasn't very popular at the time. If you remember, Obama in the primary in West Virginia got beat by a man who was from West Virginia in prison in Texas, as a felon down there, and still got more votes than Obama. It wasn't popular. No one wanted to jump on the bandwagon of Obamacare. I said, Governor, bottom line is this: it will make and improve the lives of tens, if not hundreds of thousands of West Virginians by making affordable, available health care that they don't have now. And the government was paying, I think, for the first 5 years, 100% of it. Why in the hell wouldn't we do it? He thought about it. He said, let me think about it. He called back the next day. He said, Jeff, I'll agree. I'll enter an executive order to do it. And I said, good, Governor, all your bills that you want passed, we're going to put them on the agenda today. So I felt a deep attachment to that Medicaid expansion. When I saw them pass the big, beautiful bill, a big, ugly bill, there's 522,000 people in West Virginia dependent on Medicaid. 46 or 45% of our childbirths, 78, almost 4 out of 5 people in our nursing homes are paid for by Medicaid. Half the kids in this state almost are Medicaid dependent. It's not counting SNAP benefits. But, when I saw her vote for a big, beautiful bill that was going to affect detrimentally a third of our population, almost 600,000 when you count the 70,000 or so that they refused to afford the extension of the enhanced tax credits. So there's about 600,000 people, a third of our population, is getting screwed by this big, beautiful bill. And I didn't see, she had a chance to stop it. She had a chance to change it. And she didn't lift a finger to help us. And it was time, in my view, if you're going to take care of the people you represent, it's time for you to go. And that was probably what put me over the edge and got me into the race. The timing for me couldn't have been worse. As I told you, I got 4 kids here that are 4 boys that I have joint custody of. 2 of them are adults now, I guess, but 17 and 11-year-olds. So, I spend a lot of time with them. I'm also the managing or the partner in my law firm, just turned 70, and my younger partner's in his mid 50s, unfortunately. I've been turning over most of the management of the firm over the last few years to him and maybe easing out the door towards slowing down. But that didn't quite happen. Unfortunately, back in the end of September, he was having headaches, went in for some testing and ended up finding a cancerous tumor in his brain. So he's been out work now. So for the last couple of months, he's doing quite well. Responding very well to the treatment, but it wasn't the timing. This probably couldn't have been worse, but if not now, when? It may be too late for our country if we don't stop it now. So that's why I'm in the race in a nutshell. That's who I.
Yeah. You've answered a wide range of questions, and as we mentioned before, because we give you free reign, you've actually covered the first 3 questions. I'm going to name them.
All right.
Sort of like what brought you into politics, where did you grow up, and how did you come to know West Virginia? You've really answered. What influenced you to pursue politics? I think you've really covered. You can bring them back anytime you want. So we're go right on to the 4th question. And I did want to just comment because of some of the things you covered. You went through the amendments that you see as being under attack right now. And one of the pieces of news I caught recently was even the Department of Justice, Bondi, requesting, and it was a bizarre one, going after the Second Amendment, requesting the registration of a firearms group. And I don't remember what state it is, but he wanted the list of names, which is like, that seemed like a rather obvious red line to me. So I was a little surprised at that one.
Yeah, First Amendment, Second Amendment, it's okay to
even the second, yeah.
Well, just like the men in Minneapolis, with the shooting there, and
no investigation.
Excuse was he, shouldn't be carrying a gun at a protest, even though he was lawfully carrying it. Now that would usually drive the Second Amendment proponents over the edge to hear that. I guess you're allowed to carry a gun, but you have to go to the right rally.
Yes, I think that's shifting, honestly. I mean, so appreciate your message. So the next question we have is there anything about your history which, if revealed, could harm your campaign?
Excuse me?
Oh, is there anything about your history which, if revealed, could harm your campaign?
Oh, people don't like some of the votes I've probably made, but, I've tried to live above board. No, I don't think you find any domestic violence, DUIs, anything like that in my background. I've been practicing 45 years and serve as the chair of the District 2 Character Committee, where anybody wants to be a lawyer, I have to interview first up in this area of the state. I mean, we all have made mistakes in life. I'm not perfect by any means, but, overall, I think, I've tried to live by the book. And but I also realize that folks don't always live by the book. And as I mentioned, being a prosecutor, I was, charged with probably had the ability to put people in prison and jail. There's no more power the government has than to take away their freedom. But I also realized after being a prosecutor for 17 years, municipal judge for a couple, that is an awesome power. And if it's abused, it can lead to terrible, terrible abuses. And I also noticed and realized after doing it all that long, a lot of the time the people that were showing up in my court or in the courtroom that I had to prosecute were the same people over and over and over again. And oftentimes you'd pick them up. It was usually petty crime, stealing this, stealing that. And it was usually to support something. It became pretty obvious to me it was a drug dependency with the opiate problems that we had in the state of West Virginia over and over and over. So, I helped to formulate in the Senate, working with Judge Gahn up here in the High County and and Jim Lee's, we opened up the first drug court in the state of West Virginia that actually gave people an opportunity, because I could see that you'd get people, they'd come in, they'd commit a crime, you put them in jail, they serve their weekend, 30 days, whatever it is, but all you were doing was sobering up an addict. And as soon as I got out, it started all over again. So that wasn't, locking them up wasn't the key. So what we did is, created a drug court, intensive drug and alcohol rehabilitation programs. It was so successful up here that it actually became a model that was used throughout the entire state of West Virginia, and even the federal court system used it. In fact, unfortunately, I didn't know at the time, my older son got in trouble with drugs, addicted himself. The worst times of a parent's life, trust me. I've seen it up close and personal. But fortunately, they had the drug court program had been adopted up in the Northern District, and he was the first successful graduate of that program. So I didn't know at the time when I started that I was helping anybody. I was helping my own family, but years later it did. So, you can change sometimes lives of people one step at a time, one life at a time. But, most people I believe are good. I try to think that most people are good.
I agree.
Bad things. But jails are places, I tell folks, where you're supposed to put people you're afraid of, not people you're mad at. And I found the jails were full of people we were just mad at.
Yeah.
I look forward to having a longer conversation with you around that. So that's wonderful.
So,
that's a lovely message too.
we did criminal justice reform and to remove penalties. Now I see it going the other way with ours now in charge. They're enhancing penalties and locking people up longer, but it's counterproductive.
Right. Private prisons also, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. That was a really lovely message, and I really agree with that point. It's like I think bad things are taught to people, and we have to start at the root to prevent those things from
You try.
happening.
Education and opportunity will work wonders.
Yep. Alrighty,
All right, Will.
we'll do the next question. This is a fun one. I've noticed that everyone has a fun answer to this. It is, who are the people you don't want voting for you?
Anyone at times is going to think I'm going to be their puppet.
That is a great answer. That is thank you.
I learned a long time ago in politics, having run several elections and won 5 or 6 successfully and lost 1 or 2. But my uncle was a county commissioner here. As I mentioned, my dad was, I had a family history of public service at the local level, county commissioner, city council. We just grew up that way. My mom was a Kennedy Democrat, and we were going to give back. And my uncle used to tell me, he said, Jeff, he said, I'd help him on his campaign putting up signs. He'd say, don't get discouraged when you're out there. He said, they say it's a landslide if you win by 60%, right? And I said, yeah. He said, well, that still means 40% of the people, almost 4 out of every 10 people you walk up to aren't going to vote for you no matter what you do. You can find a cure for cancer and they're not going to vote for you. So, you got to still help them if you get in, but don't waste all your time chasing their votes. You're never going to get them. So it's probably good advice.
All right. So the next question is, what commitments are you willing to make with regard to sources of funding for your campaign?
Oh, I don't know. I'm running against a million. I've run against a billionaire when I ran against Jim Justice. That wasn't easy. Trust me. I've got a website up on ActBlue. I don't scour who in the heck makes a donation. Not at this point. Most of them are smaller donations, I suspect. If groups that I've, labor groups, things of that nature that I appeal to, if they want to fund me through their PACs or whatever, I'll welcome their money. So I'm not going to disavow anyone and, have a litmus test that say I won't take money from this one or that one because, she's already got $4 million in the bank, and she's probably going to have more. It's tough to run against an incumbent. And I've tried doing the door-to-door route in one of my campaigns against the governor running justice, and you just can't reach enough people if you don't have enough money to have at least put out a message. So I'm not going to disavow any funding. I don't want a bunch of out-of-state money that think I'm going to be beholden to them. because I'm not. Uh, I intend to my goal is to take care of the people I represent. I don't intend to be there for the next, if I get successful, to be there forever, but we need to right the ship now. And, I will welcome the opportunity to get the resources to run a statewide campaign because, I just told you, I've got 4 places to be in the next 18 hours, and I don't have a helicopter. So, messaging, television, radio is probably the only way you do it, and they don't give it away. So
I hope we can give you the opportunity to build something with that. We've got a little plans and a work of our own, so we'll let you know about that another time.
Get this man a helicopter. I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
Jetpack.
So we'll go on to the next one, and feel free to touch on any of the other issues too. I know you talked about this specifically, but many West Virginians have faced issues for decades like addiction, high healthcare costs, and electricity costs, etc. What will you do differently to ensure your plans actually turn into results?
Well, the first thing I'd do as a U.S. Senator, I would vote to repeal and roll back the big, beautiful bill. Not only is it cutting health care benefits for the people of our state dramatically, and what really is annoying about it, the rollback on the affordable.
It'll start till 27.
Yeah, the credits. You know when it kicks in?
27.
April or January 1st, 2027, 2 months after the election, after they've screwed you by saying, hey, yeah, vote for me, vote for me. It didn't hurt. That was rollbacks in Medicaid didn't hurt. It won't hurt you. Wait until 2 months after the election. That's disingenuous. It's deceitful, and it's harmful. Now, as you're the nominee, she's going to have some explaining to do. And I intend to hold her feet to the fire. Why on earth would you vote and turn your back on 600,000 West Virginians? And that doesn't even count the SNAP benefits that are being hurt of hungry children. That's cruel. It's wrong. And it doesn't help anybody. And, tax breaks for a bunch of damn billionaires, of which, quite frankly, last I looked, there was one in the state, and he happens to sit on the floor of the Senate with her. But it's not helping the overwhelming majority of the people of our state, and it's hurting them, and that infuriates me.
Thank you. So the next question is, when experts present different recommendations, what processes do you use to reach a well-reasoned conclusion?
Yeah, my undergrad degree's in economics. I learned to use a cost-benefit analysis on things. Who's it going to help? Who's it going to hurt? When people would come in as my Senate president in the Senate, they'd say, yeah, Senator, would you vote for this bill? Will you support this bill? Will you sponsor this bill? I said, well, tell me about it. I said, no. I said, now what's the other side going to tell me why your bill's no damn good or no good? I want to hear both sides, And I try to make a judgment on whether it's feasible, affordable, and it'll help and it actually will benefit the people you represent. That's basically the analysis I use. I don't stick my head in the sand, and climate change is real. All this other nonsense, trying to roll back diversity, equity, inclusion, the tax on education, and suing Harvard this morning. All this stuff is just trying to actually thwart the free exchange of ideas and trying to say us against them and they're bad because they're smart or because, don't believe the scientists. I mean, it's absolutely insanity what the times we're living in. So that's how I do it. That's how I approach it.
Yeah. And it's good to have strong candidates like you because there is a lot of polarization. That's kind of where our organization is aimed at to just help people be informed. And
I've supported Second Amendment issues, but people don't need to walk around with a bazooka on their back. They don't. Everybody doesn't need a bazooka or their finger on the nuclear code. They really don't.
I'll send you something at some point if you want to talk about that. That is non-standard, but it points out that for most of the Second Amendment specific issues, there's something like 60 to 90% agreement on what the legislation should be. So it's remarkable that you can't push something that's got 60, 90% support over the headline because most people do want basic common sense reform, like you don't want somebody who's severely depressed or suicidal. The family members want to be. Most people get common sense things,
Yeah.
but it gets turned into something it's not oftentimes. So I appreciate
It's they take it to the extreme with isolated arguments that never happen. They're fighting all over. There's how much time they spend in the legislature this time fighting about transgender shows and stuff. My God, there maybe how many of them are there? Truthfully,
that. Two in high school.
I mean, and so we're going to spend all our time and resources worrying about things where more of the state doesn't have clean water, and we're worried about somebody dancing around in a cabaret or in some kind of a show. I mean, it's silly. It's a waste of time, resources, but it does rile up people to get all fired up and hate the other side or to hate somebody.
Gotcha.
If they can join together to hate somebody, I guess that unites them. But boy, that's
Yeah, that's what we want to prevent. We don't like that. We hate how polarized it is and how you can't have an opinion without being attacked, essentially. So, but we'll move on to the next one. You
time already,
also
guys. I don't have my watch on. What is
You're you're really good. It's 10. It's not
yeah.
even 10:30 yet.
good?
So you're still good to go for the next.
Yeah,
We only
let's
have like four or
keep
five more
rolling.
left.
All right.
Yep, we got
Alrighty.
4 more questions.
So
All right.
I know you said you talked about the big ugly bill in your terms. But what is one necessary policy to address West Virginia's longstanding issues that might be unpopular, but you believe is essential? So maybe you want to touch a little more on that. And when you said you dislike this and that.
Well, that it's unpopular.
Yeah, one that you believe is essential, but
Well, I think one of the things we have to do is to fix the crumbling infrastructure we have in our state. I don't know how many, particularly southern West Virginia, don't even have clean water. It's ridiculous. And so I've been working with some group with the Progressive Democrats of America group to try to, we're looking and exploring, and I've committed to trying to help what's called an national infrastructure bank, which would put, I don't know, 11 trillion or whatever, but not public financing, apparently come out of the Treasury Department, and to actually put significant increase into funding availability for particularly small and rural states, and probably the entire United States, to fix all our crumbling water, sewer, and infrastructure system, bridges, highways, roads. It all needs to be done. Uh, they'll say, well, it's a left-wing pie in the sky social welfare program for the states to do this, but it's modeled after what we did, what FDR did in the 1930s, after, in the 40s, and Eisenhower did to some degree. Well, I guess not with this interstate system, but he did do it with the with the FDR model to help jumpstart our economy. And frankly, when I was in the Senate, I think during the 2008 must have been the 2008 year, when I think we were going through a recession nationally at that time, and was able to working with several of the other legislative leaders at the time, and we did a West Virginia infrastructure grant program that, frankly, we bonded some of the revenues we were getting from the gaming and other revenues, and did aggressively some infrastructure improvements in the state, which led to the creation of, the Highlands Cabela district up in the northern Panhandle, Pullman Square down in Huntington, the new Appalachian Ballpark in Charleston. I think there was a roundhouse or something over in the eastern Panhandle. We did things that actually, but we also put in that bill in these infrastructure programs that I introduced and had attached to it a West Virginia Jobs Act. That if you're going to use tax revenues in the state of West Virginia to pay off bonds, we ought to benefit the people of the state. So I put a Jobs Act component that there was preferential treatment for hiring West Virginians or people within 70, you can't just close the border, but within 75, 90 miles of West Virginia, it would get first dibs at the job. We're going to use our tax dollars. We ought to help as many of our citizens of our state to build these programs. So even despite the the recession that was going on in '08, West Virginia weathered that pretty well, quite frankly, because of a lot of the multiplier effect. Once money's spent in your community, it continues to roll. So it helped to keep West Virginia not only above water, but we built things. We improved lives. We created jobs. The Highlands up there in the northern Panhandle was a bunch of abandoned farmland, mine land. Nothing coming out of it. No, hardly any property tax. Now there's 3 or 4 or 5,000 people working all the retail shops, restaurants, things of that nature, sports complexes. It provides growth opportunity for the people in your area.
Got it. So, Will, I probably collapse the next two questions because I think the first one's covered, but I'll
Yeah.
go through both of them again. The first, which I think you've covered, which is what experience or expertise best prepares you for this role, and where do you expect to rely on advisors, which I think you've covered, but I'll give you a crack at that. And the next question is, how will you engage with constituents who did not vote for you or strongly disagree with your positions? So pick either of those as you want to run with them.
I've had a history of public service. I'm the only candidate, I'm sure, that I've told you I've been a municipal judge, municipal attorney, county prosecutor, county attorney for public service districts with water and sewer projects. I've been a state representative and actually the second most powerful man in the West Virginia legislature. The governor's had license plate number 1. I had number 2. It's up on my mantle behind me. So I've had experience at the state, local, and county government levels. I've seen government work. I see how it doesn't work. And I'd like to take that to the federal level because Lord knows the federal government's not working very well. How would I reach out to folks? I don't. Mama told me a long time ago, growing up, like I said, on the wrong side of the tracks, Jeff, don't you ever look down your nose at anybody. But don't you ever let them ever look down your nose at you either. You treat everybody the same. And I have a lot of friends, MAGA friends, and I may beat my head up against the wall listening to them, but they're still my friends. And I've found that sometimes once you get through that initial facade, sometimes I've had some even say, now that I'm in the race, Jeff, I know you're a Democrat, but I'm going to vote for you. Shh, don't tell anybody.
Don't out them in public.
You know why? Because I spend a lifetime helping people. That's what I do every day. No one's ever come into my law and said, Jeff, I won the mega millions. I've got 4 billion. Can set me up some big elaborate trust. People come in, they've been hurt. They're getting divorced. They've lost a family member. Somebody needs a power of attorney. Grandma's in a nursing home. They usually have a problem. And when you listen to them, you walk and, you try to help them and you listen and you can do a lot of good.
That's awesome. I know.
I think our government quits listening. I don't think Shelley Moore Capito's had a town halls in years. None of them have. All they do is walk around when they're on break and hand out checks of our taxpayer money.
We might be giving you an opportunity for that soon.
And that's awesome to hear too. I'm happy to hear that a lot of candidates are starting to approach it that way and trying to understand all walks of life, and that it's not as simple as just saying like, "Oh, you're terrible for this," or "You should be blah blah blah," and all that. So yeah, we thank you for. That's awesome that you have that experience and seeing all those different lifestyles. So, we did the last. He did the last question.
If you
So
take the last one written, I'll take the last one after that.
okay. Well, you already kind of answered this too, but it's like, what is your plans for transparency and accountability while office? If you want to touch on that, but you said town halls and everything.
Well, I've made it a practice that I try at least to return every call before I leave the office at night. Sometimes I pray I'll get a busy signal or a voicemail, but I try. Now, I'm not perfect. I'm not saying I don't. It may be sometimes, but I usually try to respond. And at least I've told people before, people can handle being told no, but they sure as hell don't like being ignored. They hate being ignored, so I try to be accessible. I'm not afraid to walk into any forum and hear them out. I may disagree with them, I'll try to explain to them why. And, you know, you don't run from the people you represent.
Gotcha. All right. Well, we won't be running from you. The last question, and then anything else you want to bring up is what is your opinion of and feeling about ranked choice voting, and would you support it if you had the opportunity?
I honestly don't know that much about it. It's the one I think where you come in first, second, or third place. And I think they're doing it
Yeah,
in Alaska or somewhere. A
they
couple
did it.
done
There's a
it.
lot of states at the state level where it's done. I think New York City did it. There's some cities, municipalities, and in Alaska, I know they do it.
Yeah, and I really haven't looked at it. I mean, I'll never say never to anything. I'm open to anything if it increases voter involvement and participation. I guess the downside of it would be whether all it does is lead to a bunch of runoffs. So did I assume they have runoffs in then? They have,
I'll give you the brief because it's worth it. Basically, if in ranked choice, as I understand it, you put your numbers, your first choice, your second choice, your third down, and then whoever is at the bottom, if no one gets to 50% plus,
right.
the last candidate, all their votes are reapportioned to everyone else. So your second, third, fourth. So if you have 20 candidates, you'd vote as far as you want.
Yeah.
Um, and then they just keep eliminating the lowest, the candidate with the least until somebody gets pushed over the 51% line. So that's basically how it works. And the advantage that they point out to in it is that it tends to mean that you don't tack to the extremes,
Yeah.
because you can't just rely on your base when you go that route. That is the way it's often explained.
Yeah. I'd be willing to look at it, and particularly the states has used it either as a pilot project or as a full blown implementation to see how it works. But if it works and increases voter participation,
Generally, yes.
it's clearly on the decline. And as they're fighting over the SAVE Act, trying to further drive down voter participation, uh, yeah,
I think you'll like it.
might be willing, might be a partial solution to voter disenchantment. I think most people quit voting because they don't think they care. They don't care because they don't feel
Yeah.
people listen, and they don't listen
They
if they
feel like, yeah, they feel like
That's
their vote does nothing. And
right.
that's also what we want to change. We want to empower people. Like your vote does matter. Like if we have everybody voting in the country, then that's gonna make a difference.
Well, scares the hell out of the ones that are in power, I
Yep.
guarantee.
well,
Yeah. Well,
this
that's
and that's why when we post this, and you'll get a copy of this in a transcript, used as you see fit.
yeah.
Um, but why this type of format, we're finding a lot of people like it because they get to know, like I said, you've seen how we run this. It's like going to a community forum or a town hall. You get a full sense of it. So candidates that uh, don't really become personal, you don't get a sense of them.
Yeah, and that's part of the what's difficult about I get invited to go to all these meet the candidates here, and there's 20 candidates there, and 15 state, local school boards, and everybody gets 3 minutes. I mean, you drive 5 hours, you talk 3 minutes. It's but you try to do the best you can with what you got.
Yeah.
And not
And
I don't like an opportunity. I just wish there were more opportunities to have
yeah.
a more
Um,
lengthy presentation
sure.
and debate and exchange of ideas rather than get on the stage,
That's
get the
Well,
hook
if
before
you
white
stop
people.
in Berkeley Springs, give me a call. I think I'm on the email so you can catch, but
I'll
my
go ahead
wife and
in the
I
interview
own a few
too.
businesses here and